Happy Thursday, guys. We are on chapter 8 of PSB 11, Meeting Miss Hendricks. Things were back to normal if Pa whistling was normal. Big Ma fell asleep in her chair during Peyton Place with a movie star newspaper in her lap underneath her Bible. I mopped the kitchen floor. My sisters took their baths. I got used to Pa's new face and whistling, that he worked from early morning and was home in time for supper most days. No more working all day and all night for Pa. No more long, tired faces. It was all because of Miss Marva Hendricks, this lady friend in Brownsville on the other side of Atlantic Avenue. I should have been glad that my father's dimples showed when he smiled and that he wasn't tired from working day and night. I should have been glad my father had spring in his step and took his new shirts to the cleaners. I should have danced a jig and said, "Less shirts for me to wash, wring out, starch, and iron." If Pa was happy, then I should have been happy too. But I wasn't. One night after dinner, Pa said, "I think it's time that you met Marva." Yes, the time has come. He had used the same voice and the same words to tell us we were flying to Oakland to reunite with our mother. He'd said it was a thing whose time had come. When he spoke those words about meeting Cecile, he was long-faced and serious. When he said them about Miss Marva Hendricks, he was light-hearted and ready for some teasing, at least from Vanetta and Fern. I tried not to be an old wet sock, but I didn't feel like teasing. I felt like time had come too soon. Before I could properly sulk about it, the doorbell rang and Pa was smiling and springing up out of his chair. Vanetta and Fern tap-danced in their tennis shoes until Big Ma warned them to stop acting like a bunch of untrained chimps and not to shame Pa. He brought his lady friend inside, like how the church ushers brought in a visiting guest to the special pew up front. Miss Marva Hendricks was what magazines called petite. Her afro was Angela Davis big, but curly, like she spent a lot of time rolling it up the night before and picking it out. Her dress and shoes were snappy and mod, like Miss Honeywell's, my soon-to-be sixth-grade teacher. She wore eyeshadow, too light and bright for her skin coloring, in my opinion. Her lashes were coated with mascara. Her eyebrows were thick, but plucked to form a steep I-C arch. Her nails were icy blue like her eyeshadow. Miss Marva Hendricks was everything my mother wasn't. Big Ma and I must have thought the same thing. Miss Marva Hendricks was almost out of a fashion magazine. No wonder my father wore brand new shirts that he only trusted with the cleaners. I didn't like her before I'd seen her. Now that I saw her, nothing had changed. "Mama, darling daughters," this got an eye roll from Big Ma, "I'd like you to meet." Heckle and Jekyll giggled and shook, and I wished they'd be still. After not having a mother for so long, we had finally met and hugged our mother, and lived in her house, and said her poetry, and cleaned up her kitchen, and gathered her papers and her movable type pieces after the police messed up her workspace. We had just met, hugged, and maybe even loved our mother. Smelled the coconut oil in her big braids, and there my sisters were wiggling like worms in a bait box. "Miss Marva Hendricks," Pa said proudly. I knew better than to cross my arms or roll my eyes. I knew better, but I couldn't help myself. My forearms bolted across my chest. Each hand clamped fast around my arm muscles. I at least had enough sense not to roll my eyes. I said, "Nice to meet you, Miss Hendricks." "Marva," she offered. "Miss Marva Hendricks," I said. Big Ma's firm nod told me not to forget my home training no matter what Pa's lady friend said. "That's Delphine, my oldest," Pa said, although looking at us, there was no need to offer that open-faced fact. "This is—" Vanetta shot up, curtsied, and said in her best showy and crowy voice, "I'm Vanetta, the middle." Fern did Vanetta one better, daintily holding out her skirt hem as if she wore a hoop skirt, and said, "I'm Fern, but my mother calls me Afua." She curtsied on the Afua. Miss Hendricks smiled and nodded, a kind of bow to Fern's curtsy. "Which do you prefer, Fern or Afua? You can call me Fern." Then she added, "Only my mother calls me Afua." I envied my baby sister. I wish I could say things. Did she know she had just told Pa's lady friend that she was not her mother? Miss Marva Hendricks didn't seem to mind. Perhaps it was that Fern was still little and sweet-voiced. Her eyes were bright and aimed to please. Big Ma, however, was none too pleased by Fern owning up to her ooga-mooga name. But Fern's words had given me a spark, and I felt a little bit better. Miss Marva Hendricks tugged at Pa's shirt, looked up at him while batting her heavy eyelashes, and said, "No time like the present, Lou." Her voice was sing-songy, but I could hear her telling my father, not asking. Pa seemed to agree. He smiled at her and turned to Big Ma and said, "Ma," and then he said, "Girls," and turned to each one of us. Me first, Vanetta, and then Fern. "I've asked Marva to be my wife." Vanetta and Fern squealed. Big Ma put on a polite smile. My father's words rang through me like something I shouldn't have eaten. I felt weak down to my toes and warm all over. Somehow I managed to do like Big Ma. I put on a polite smile and said, "That's nice, Papa." I didn't know what else to say. What else do you say when your father announces he's getting married? What do you say when you don't like his lady friend? Can't possibly ever like her. And you don't dare shame your pa, Big Ma, or as Big Ma would say, all the Charles Gators and Trotters in Prattville, Alabama. What can you do when your lip has dropped into a mile-long pout while everyone else is happy, or at least being polite? You put on a smile and say it again. "That's nice, Pa, very nice, because none of Miss Merriam-Webster's words would show up in time to save you. You remember how Mrs. Peterson forbade us to use the word very in book reports because very was a fine word for 4th graders, but too lazy for 5th graders. Yet here you are, getting ready to start the 6th grade using 4th grade words. You can't help yourself and add another very, very, very nice, Papa." "You asked her to be your wife?" Vanetta asked. "What did she say?" It was clear to me, but Fern said, "Will she?" Miss Marva Hendricks extended her hand to show her the 2 white stones on her ring finger. "I told your father I will." Big Ma said, "My, isn't that pretty?" She was still being polite. Good old Big Ma. Vanetta and Fern started another bout of squealing. My old papa would have reeled in their noise. My new papa let Vanetta and Fern's excitement run wild. New Pa bent down and gave Miss Hendricks a smack on the lips to encourage Vanetta and Fern, who obliged him with a lot of high-pitched oohing. Then Big Ma told Pa and his lady friend, "That's enough of that. You're not married yet." Even so, she said to Miss Hendricks, "Welcome to the family, Marva dear," as nicely as she could. She didn't give her a big hug. Later that night, when we were all sitting on my bed, Vanetta announced, "I'm the flower girl." "Me too," Fern cried. "I called it first. But I'm younger and shorter, and you're too big. You're a big 4th grader." I stared at them in Cecile-like disbelief. How could my own sisters go on and on about being flower girls, wearing pink satin dresses, getting their hair pressed, curled for Papa's wedding to another woman? How could they fight over Cecile's postcard one day and throw their mother away without a care the next day? Soon enough, my sister's wedding plans turned into arguing over how to throw rose petals. I couldn't take another word of it. "Y'all need to quit it," I said. "Pa and Miss Hendricks are too old to have some fairy tale wedding with flower girls and harps playing." But Fern heard harps playing. She ballet-teetered on her toes to the harp strings plucking in her head, and Vanetta joined her, twirling and leaping. I watched my own sisters through my mother's eyes, happily dancing this woman into our house. So, clearly, Delphine, in our first story, went from completely, not trusting Cecile to then, by the end, really finding it in her heart to love Cecile for who she is. And now she's back in Brooklyn, and her father's introduced this new woman into their life. And she's not sure how she feels because she really just wants to be around Cecile and misses her mom. So it's a lot of emotions that Delphine is going through in this chapter. And you're going to hear her continue to write back and forth to Cecile throughout the whole story. So we'll find out what happens in the next chapter.